Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. Josh Taylor, appreciate that, and welcome inside the Fan Cave. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call, a show we do 7 nights a week, so don't be a stranger. Call 412-575-2600, and we would love to talk to you. In the meantime, we're talking about what has been a busy time at the Combine for the Steelers and every other NFL team. There have been some notable moves over the last couple of days. The biggest, I guess, would be Deebo Samuel being traded from San Francisco to Washington for what amounted to a 5th-round pick. And keep in mind, the big part of that deal is the big contract that Samuel brings to Washington, but they want to load up and kind of, find as many offensive weapons as they can for their outstanding young quarterback. So that's something we'll see. A lot of people thought maybe the Steelers would be in on that. And again, for only a 5th-round pick, but the money comes with it as well. So, and he hasn't looked he's had one 1,000-yard receiving season. So I think, he's one of those guys who can do a lot of things in their offense, but I'm not sure if it's worth all the money that he signed for and maybe, future money he's looking at. Beyond that, there's a question of quarterbacks here, of course, not only here, but all around the NFL. What are the Raiders going to do? What are the Giants going to do? Where Aaron Rodgers end up? What will happen here in Pittsburgh? Quite frankly, they're going to have an answer soon. They would like to get a deal done with somebody here before the free agency period begins, which is March the 12th, and the legal tampering at March the 10th. So I would imagine this week is going to be a determining week. And right now, again, for me, as I said from the beginning of this process, I would just sign Justin Fields for a couple of years and redraft a quarterback next year. Now, I know people out there would love to draft a quarterback this year, but if you're going to do it early, you may be going for another reach. It's better if you're going to do it, wait till the middle rounds. There are guys out there like Jalen Milroe, like Will Howard, like Jackson Dart, and so many others that fit that category. You can get somebody there, I guess, as a developmental kind of quarterback. But if you're looking for a franchise quarterback, again, I don't think that's going to happen until sometime next year. We'll see how it goes. But if they do choose Fields, you wonder what happens to Russell Wilson at that point, because he wants to be a starter. He doesn't want to go somewhere to be a backup. Could that happen in Las Vegas? Probably not, because he and Pete Carroll ended on not a great note. How about New York Giants? Maybe, although Aaron Rodgers is on their radar too. So this quarterback thing will keep going on. And then the Steelers have to figure out what they're going to do with guys like George Pickens. Do they sign him? Do they extend him? Or do they just let him play out the final year of his contract? That comes with some trepidation because the maturity issues are well known, and that could still be a problem. So this is going to be a busy week. We'll keep you posted on it. And join us tonight for the #1 Cochran Sports Showdown. That's on 1135 KDKA. We have a lot of good people who know a lot about these topics coming on tonight. Will Graves from the Associated Press, Ray Fittipaldo, and Brian Batko from the Post-Gazette. So that's tonight, 1135. In the meantime, Penguins lost a game today. And again, they played well. It was an entertaining hockey game. Say what you want, even if they're not in contention, you can get entertained at a hockey game if it's played the way today's game was played. And Toronto came away with a win. The Penguins end up losing that game 6-5. But there were some critical plays at the end of the second period that really determined this game. The Penguins had a 4-3 lead with a minute left in that period. And Erik Karlsson was kind of, nonchalanting it back to the bench on a change. And his replacement didn't get on the ice in time. And Jake McCabe saw that opening and hit a home run stretch pass to John Tavares, who did the rest, moves in on a breakaway. You don't see breakaways, 2 of them, in the final minute of a period. And that's exactly what we saw today, because with 5 seconds left, now keep in mind the Penguins have a draw in Toronto's zone. So you think it's highly unlikely Toronto would get a shot. If anything, you thought the Penguins might get a shot. Instead, they win the draw. Erik Karlsson somehow tries to spin a pass over to Evgeny Malkin. Both are flat-footed. That pass is intercepted by a very alert Matthew Nyes. He goes down the ice. The only question, could he beat the buzzer? And he did. But again, that's inexcusable at that point. That turned a 4-3 advantage into a 5-4 disadvantage, and then they lose, and now Toronto's 27-0 when leading after 2. So it was one of those kinds of days. 412-575-2600. We're here to talk sports with you, so call, get on the line right now, and when we come back from this commercial break, we will take those phone calls. This is the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call right here on KDKA Plus and on most nights 93.7 The Fan. Welcome back. Our Xfinity Mobile tweet of the night comes from the NHL. Top 10 for Sidney. How about this afternoon? Sidney Crosby has recorded his 1,050th career assist. That passes Gordie Howe, 10th all-time. He also got a goal, so he passes Bobby Hull on the goal-scoring list. Not a bad double-double today for Crosby to pass two of those legends in Gordie Howe and Bobby Hull. 412-575-2600. Welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Bob Pompeani with you until 11 o'clock. And we're joined right now by Jerry in Franklin, who's our first caller tonight. Hello, Jerry. How are you?
Hey, Bob. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I think one of the things that's critical for the Pirates this year, for them to have a decent season, is Jack Sawinski to go back to his form of a couple years ago. And I recently heard him say that this spring he went back kind of to the basics, and he's not thinking so much up there, and he's just doing what comes natural. And I was wondering, you probably interviewed hundreds and hundreds of ball players. Do you ever hear many hitters say that? Is that kind of a thing that hitters go back to when they're struggling?
I don't think there's any question, Jerry. Whenever you struggle, you kind of go back to basics. And it was encouraging for me the other day. I think he had a home run to the opposite field. He also had a double to the opposite field. And when you see guys start doing that, that's better technique at the plate. You know, he's a pull hitter traditionally. And in his first 2 years up here, he had more home runs than anyone, and that includes Bonds. I think there's only one guy who had more home runs. I'm not sure if that was, I forget who it was, but there was one guy, he had 49 home runs in his first 2 seasons as a Pirate. That's significant. You know, his average has always been lacking, but if you're going to hit, 25 to 30 home runs, there's a place for you in this lineup. They need power. That's why we were talking about Henry Davis. Hopefully he can get an opportunity to be up here and that bat comes to life. That would be helpful in many, many ways for them. So otherwise, they're going to be struggling to score runs. They need as much help internally as they're going to get, because apparently they're not going to spend any money on any free agents. Let's go to Will in McKees Rocks, who joins us right now on the hotline. What's up, Will? How are you?
I'm good, Bob. My best to you and your family.
You too, man. I haven't seen you in a while, but I'm glad you called.
Oh, thank you. I always enjoy talking to you. I wanted to ask you, Bob, do you think the Steelers could use their franchise tag on anybody?
Well, I mean, they can do that after this season if they want on George Pickens. They have other guys who wouldn't qualify for that for me. I'm looking at guys next year potentially. Like Cincinnati has made it known, I think, that their intention is to give a franchise tag to T. Higgins, which would affect the wide receiving market. Next year, if for example, Pickens goes and has a really good year and they didn't sign him and they want to keep him, they can always use that franchise tag. But this year, I don't think there are many candidates for that to be used on. They're going to try to get T.J. Watt to sign a new deal, I think. I don't expect to see one for Pickens. Najee Harris, he's going to be a free agent. They didn't pick up the option there. So we'll see how that goes. But bottom line is they have that use next year, potentially, not this year. Let's go to Chuck in Uniontown. Hello, Chuck. How are you?
Good evening, Bob, and thank you. I believe Ralph Kiner hit more home runs.
That's who it was. Thank you. I knew you would know. You're an encyclopedia of baseball knowledge. Ralph Kiner, and then, of all people, Jack Sawinski.
Yeah, Bob, what I want to know is, first of all, do you think the Pirates, any way they can escape last place this year? And would anybody in the Pirate lineup now start for another contender in baseball?
Well, Chuck, I think Reynolds, I don't know about starting, but he'd be in consideration for that. I think O'Neal Cruz is a big upside right now. But to answer your question about whether or not they can avoid the basement, if I'm going to look at this, in an optimistic way, their pitching should be good enough to keep them in just about every game, most games. If that's the case, they need to come up with some clutch hits. If they can figure out a way to do that, whether it's Cruz, Reynolds, Ke'Bryan Hayes, the guys I mentioned earlier, Andy Rodriguez or Henry Davis, if they get up here, any of those guys, they need to figure out a way to come up with timely hits. They may not need to go crazy on a lumber company kind of scenario, but come up with big hits at critical times of games and let that pitching staff carry you, because I think it can carry you. I think Bubba Chandler at some point this year will be up here. You add him to what they already have here, that's a pretty legitimate staff based on potential. And the bullpen, we'll see. Hopefully it's going to be back to where it was when Bednar had his first good year here. again, they need hitting. They got to get hitting. I'm just disappointed this year in the offseason they didn't do much when it comes to hitting. They needed to go out and get bats, and they really failed. Unless you believe that the first baseman they got from Toronto, Horwitz, is going to be that guy, I don't know. Right now we see Matt Gorski, a guy down in Bradenton, who's hitting really the ball all over the place. He leads all players with 10 runs batted in the spring already with 3 home runs. But he's 27 years old, looking for a last opportunity, and this would be it. He's at the end of a minor league contract, so maybe he could be your first baseman to start and just ride him until he fizzles out, if that's the case. But then they got to figure out ways to get more offense. 412-575-2600 is the number to call. Certainly, basketball is going to be upon us. March Madness, since we're in the month of March, will be in a couple of weeks. We're going to see conference tournaments, and Pitt's going to have to go on a run if they expect to do anything. They lost yesterday to Louisville, and that's a good Louisville team. In fact, I would venture to say that their coach could be coach of the year. He came from Charleston. Last year, they went 8-24. They got rid of their coaching staff, and just about every player followed, transferred out. Well, he's put together an entirely, transfer portal class this year, and they have been terrific. And now they were ranked 19th. They had gone 16-1, now 17-1 after beating Pitt in their last 18 games. It's a team to be reckoned with in the ACC. Nobody's going to deal with Duke, though. I still think when you got a guy like Cooper Flagg on your team, you're going to win a lot of games. So that conference tournament begins, and kudos to Robert Morris, by the way, because they won their Horizon League conference, and they're going to play a home game in that tournament starting, I believe, on March the 6th. So Andy Toole and his team did a fabulous job, best basketball story of this particular season, and we'll see what happens if Pitt can go on a run. Highly unlikely, because they're going to have to play a lot of games in a lot of days and win, and they don't necessarily have the inside game to deal with those other kinds of teams. 412-575-2600 is the number to call. We will take a commercial break, come back with more, including a preview of what's coming up tonight at 11 on KDKA News, right here on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.